Okay, that's how we're starting. Janelle, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. How are you feeling?
Good. You a little nervous still or no?
I'm so nervous.
I was going to say, our Sharpay Evans thing didn't just work?
No, it didn't work. I feel like I'm here with someone that's a big deal. This is also my first speaking engagement. Like, what? I'm invited to the I Love You So Much podcast.
I'm just so
nervous.
Honored. I'm very excited.
I'm honored.
You have a great podcast.
Thank you. You listen to it?
Yes. I guess I posted it. Do you think I just post it and don't listen? Like, what? One thing about me is I actually am very supportive of my friends.
You are.
I feel like people are like I actually am supportive. You know what I mean? I'm not all talk, okay?
No, you are supportive. To be completely honest, like since like in the short time I've been doing like the whole influencer things, I feel like you were one of the first people to actually actively reach out, to put me on, to invite me to like some really cool events, which I really do appreciate. So
of course.
Got to give you your flowers. You feel me?
Thank you so much. So you're kind of like the queen of TikTok these days?
No.
A little bit. I was talking to my vlog earlier, my friends in the vlog, and I was like, you guys have probably seen her, and I was going through it, and I was like, she really started. I was like giving them your whole backstory. I'm like, she was doing a lot of like Black women in luxury, and then she was doing blah, 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 and then she was doing the Copenhagen style. Like, I was going all over.
Yes.
I know.
I mean, like, TikTok has like been like a very interesting like journey for me, like kind of branding, because when I started last year, I did not have like a following really. I only had Instagram and I had maybe 1,400 followers. And then when I started doing the TikTok, I don't know, it was random. I was like, let me just do like a really cool like date night, because it's just like, dang, like I get to live like this every single day. Like I'm blessed to live like this every single day. So like, why not make something? So I started doing the Black woman in luxury. And then I started thinking, okay, well, I don't want to confine myself to just this one thing. So just constantly rebranding and doing a lot of different things just kind of keeps me in the loop. I'm kind of able to dip in a lot of different things. And I just think that comes with like being multifaceted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is like a new term that everyone's using these days. But yes.
Like, I'm multifaceted.
You are multifaceted.
Thank you. I really try.
Breadwinning housewife. I love you so much.
I try my best. Like, what can I say? I want to talk about you live an amazing life. And I want to talk about manifesting and creating your own life, because that's not your background.
Yeah.
And you really have built a very beautiful life that you are, most importantly, I feel like, very proud of.
Yes.
And you're in a very good place, it seems.
Yes.
So how did you get there?
Okay, so damn, this is a long one. All right. I just want to talk about like how manifestation kind of started happening way before this, way before I started kind of like seeing like the fruits of my labor. So to give you a little backstory, like I grew up with a single mom. We didn't really have a lot. We spent a lot of my adolescence homeless. So, there'd be a lot of days where I would come home from school and wouldn't know where we were sleeping that night. And then on top of that, with homelessness comes with like a lack of technology, not being able to call mom when something's wrong, or not being able to call mom and say, hey mom, our stuff is out on the street today. Like what's there to do? A lot of my childhood was a lot of eviction, if that makes sense. So, I knew that in order for me to like escape my situation, I was like, you know what, I'm not like a party girl. I don't want to in a sense, like, I don't want to like, how can I say this?
Like drink it away?
Yeah, I don't want to drink it away. I don't want to like kind of like destroy my life right now. I've already had a lot of lows, so like how can I win? So I think the first thing I manifested was getting into college. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay $60,000 a year for this, but somebody paying for it, and it ain't going to be me. You know what I mean? Yes. So I remember I had like almost got kicked out of school. I wrote a letter to the dean, and they had like an entire appeal. And so it was the first time I told my story. So I said, hey, I have these situations that are happening. These unfortunate things are happening. They read it. They checked my grades. My grades were good. I'm not going to lie. They were good, but they weren't like, they
weren't that good.
They weren't that good, but they were there. And so they ended up giving me a full ride scholarship.
Wow.
So I got a full ride scholarship to American.
Oh my God, I just got chills. I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, it was crazy. After that, things are smooth sailing. I came home from college for Thanksgiving break. It was like my sophomore year, and I was in a car with some friends. There wasn't anything, no foul play, anything weird going on. And we ended up in a car accident. And I was in the car with 3 other people, and I was the only person that was hurt. So I completely ripped and like tore my pelvic, and then I got sent home and from the ER, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're fine. So I ended up just trying to get back to college, and I kept trying to get to that airport. I missed my flight a couple of times, and God was like, no, I'm finna sit your ass down right now. Yeah. How I'm using God and cuss words in the same sentence.
Actually, me.
Yes. He's like, I'm going to just sit your ass down right now. So as a kid, I used to always have like this kind of imaginative mind. You know, like imagination is like really what helped me get through a lot of things. Like when I was having a lot of trouble, like just in elementary school being bullied, I would imagine myself elsewhere. And I think
escapism.
Yeah, it's escapism. You know, a lot of disassociation too. Yeah. You had to get some therapy there too. But
you're like good and bad, okay?
Good and bad. So when I really started like manifesting and stuff, you know, like in the lifestyle I get to live, it's just like the progression of just hard work. You know, it's like honestly, I just made a recent TikTok about being open to failure. So I had to fail a lot in this process. You know, like when I had wrote my first book, I had to fail at that multiple times. When I put out my book and independently published it, there would be people messaging me saying, hey girl, you misspelled a word, or hey girl, I'm like, damn, can I just have this win? Yeah. So it was a lot of that. There was a lot of taking on jobs and career paths that weren't for me, you know, and then also like my partner who like, you know, does well for himself. It was just a lot of, you know, me just trying not to morph my identity into him too. So just constantly having to find a way when you don't really have an example, if that makes sense. And then when I got on the whole manifestation thing, it had been something I had been doing for years. So I would separate my life into 4 seasons. You know, people make these giant ass vision boards with, I'm going to lose 40 pounds. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then what ends up happening is you have this giant yearly vision board where you just get completely overwhelmed. You don't know how to separate those thoughts. You don't know how to separate those things. And you put all of this unnecessary pressure on yourself when in actuality, you need to just separate those goals into 4 separate seasons. So for the first couple of months of the year, you just want to focus on those smaller goals. Like if you want to become a content creator, if you have 1,300 followers, maybe you can try to get to 3K followers, if that makes sense. If you want to lose weight, you have this grand goal of losing 40 pounds. Maybe you can just try to lose 10 that first like couple of months, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's more tangible.
More tangible. And I think like when you have something that's like more tangible, it also rids yourself of disappointment. And it also helps with imposter syndrome. And it also helps like combat those negative thoughts, those intrusive thoughts that I'm not enough because I didn't get it right this time. You know, and it's just like people have to understand that like in the process of achieving these goals, you also have to check in on yourself. Like you got to check yourself and be like, you know what, that negative thought I'm having actually isn't real. That's just intrusive thoughts. And then I feel like the process of also like finding what works for you and manifesting this life is also going to take a lot of humbling experiences. Because you might not be that great. You know what I mean? Like you might not be that great. Like you might actually have some ugly ways. You might honestly have some very envious ways, some very jealous ways. And that's something I had to learn about myself because I used to be so envious of nepotism children, which I talk about all the time because it's just like it would be so hard for me not to compare myself to someone that had it all figured out.
Yeah, it had a different starting point.
A completely different starting point. And that just came down to race, the color of my skin. It came down to class. It came down to a lot of things. And even with my own relationship, like my partner is a white man. So it's just like, you know, just seeing like his success next to mine, I would just have moments where it's just like, well, I want to be happy for him, but damn, it's just not fair. Like, it's just not fair, you know, and it isn't fair. And I think like, you know, sometimes we have to be easy on ourselves, and I feel like a lot of times like we as women, and then you also take into factor that if you are a woman of color, but also on top of being a woman, there are a lot of things that are against us. Like there are a lot of things that are potentially trying to tear us down. Like Roe v. Wade was just overturned. We don't have ownership over our bodies. You know, then on top of that, we have all of these hormonal imbalances. We, you know, what did they say? They say our body is going through, they say we only get, 6 days out of the year to ourselves?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
A man told me that.
Yeah.
I said, how do you know this and I don't know that?
Wild.
So it's just like, just a lot of just getting real and just being true to myself. And I feel like you could talk for manifestation too, because I mean, like, look at all the things you got going on right now, girl.
Well, what I love about how you talk about manifestation, because I am like an Enneagram 3.
Yeah.
My anxiety is like rampant, always has been.
Yeah.
And that has been the best and the worst thing about my life, because I will be honest, I don't think I would be where I'm at today had I not been a very anxious child. And I had a pretty tumultuous childhood in like different ways.
Yeah.
And a lot of my anxiety was like, it kind of turned into like hyper independence. And I was like, I moved out when I was 17. I was like, I need to do all these things. I need to whatever. So the anxiety kind of weirdly like pushed me in certain ways, but I've always just had, I don't know, I've had this like weird feeling. Like I remember when I was 12 years old, one of my childhood friends and I have talked about this many times.
Yeah.
We were on El Dorado Parkway in McKinney, Texas.
I
Okay?
know exactly where that's at.
Yes, I was at a Sonic across from Evans Middle School, and we were sitting in her mom's van. And I was like, I don't know how to describe this, but I just know that when I'm older, like I'm going to be, I keep in mind at this point, like YouTube didn't, like it was a thing, but no one knew that it was like a thing, right? Yes. And I was like, I'm going to have a career where I'm on camera and I'm going to have like a clothing line or something. And I'm going to be, I was like, I don't know if it's like TV or whatever, but I know I'm going to be on camera and this. And I basically exactly described what I do today, and it didn't even exist. But it was also like, I just had this weird gut feeling.
Yeah.
But because I am just naturally a very driven person, and I think part of that comes from just naturally being driven, and the other part of that comes from my anxiety. Sure enough, every year, I'm constantly setting goals. Like, it's not just like a New Year thing, but every New Year, I will get a little bit more anxious in January, and I will be very hard on myself and feel like I have to do everything at once. Yeah. So I love what you said about separating into seasons, because I think that would combat a lot of my issues. Yes. This year, it's not nearly as bad as it has been. I think that's partly because I've made a lot of the biggest things, like the bigger things happen. And I feel like the more you make happen, the more you just trust that it's going to happen.
Yes.
But also I was traveling, so I like wasn't home to just like overthink. You know what I mean? Yes. So I was like, I'm going to be doing that every year.
Yes.
But I like the idea of like splitting it up.
Yes. No, I like what you said about like oftentimes like your anxiety is what kind of like drove you. Yeah. I can relate to that. Like, I really can relate to that.
So yours, like, I feel like anxiety either, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, paralyzes you almost. Yes. And then other times, anxiety pushes you. So do you feel like your anxiety pushes you?
My anxiety, okay, so I think now I operate more so from, like, a place of love and just a place of more so, like, passion creatively. Yeah. So I remember when I went to therapy, there was, like, a period, I haven't really told anybody this, but there was literally a period where I was living in California. I was doing well for myself. I was like working like 3 different jobs, and then COVID hit, and then I came back home. And when I came back home, like there wasn't any money being made. I wasn't doing the things that I was doing in California. I felt very like depressed. So I sunk into a depression deep depression for 6 months. And then when I was going to therapy, my therapist said to me, you've been operating from a place of trauma. Trauma is the only reason why you're striving so hard. And it's just like, now you have to operate from a place of love, because there was nothing going on. The world is shut down. People are losing their jobs left and right. It's just like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, who is Janell when she's not over functioning? Like, who is Janell when there isn't anyone to blame or anyone to point the finger out? I had removed my toxic family dynamic from my life. I had removed a lot of things. And now it's just like, how do I find grace within my own self? Like, how do I operate in a place where it isn't based off of survival, but just based off of just living? So it's just like, I had to learn how to live. And I feel like even till this day, like, before I even came here, girl, I was outside, not outside here. I was outside somewhere else, and I was literally trying to, like, start taking, like, pictures of my outfits, like, for Instagram, because, like, I want to grow my Instagram. And kid you not, I got so damn frustrated. I was just like, you know what? This is some BS. Like, I'm not looking good. The fit ain't fitting. You know what? The sun ain't hitting me right. Like, it was one of those moments, and then I had to reel myself in, and I had to police my thoughts. And it's just like, I can't go into this mindset of being extremely like hungry to achieve. It's just like I have to be graceful and I have to be kind to myself throughout the process. And even when I look at my lifestyle, and even when I look at even just growing on TikTok, it's kind of crazy to me because it just feels like, it's just like, I don't even know how I'm doing any of this. It's just happening because I'm moving from a place of love. Because at some point, if we keep operating from a place of like trauma and wanting to win all the time, we're going to be faced with ourselves. We spent all these years winning. What happens when there's no more wins to win?
It's like wherever I go, there I am.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you're running from something. And that was definitely me for so long.
Yes.
And it still is my natural thing that I will fall back on.
Yes.
I don't think it's always how I'm operating now.
Yes.
After years and years of therapy.
Yes.
But like, I don't know. I think that weirdly enough, it makes me think of people who like move nonstop and it's always the city and never them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what
and
you
I think
mean.
sometimes a move is great and it's the direction you need to go to. No, I'm not saying moving is bad, but when you are moving and you're in like maybe city number 3 or 4, and like life isn't improving, it's wherever I go, there I am. You know, it's a little scary because then it's like, oh, it's me, you know?
Ooh, girl.
And that's not fun. You have to actually like look in the mirror.
Yes.
And no one wants to do that.
Wait.
I don't want to do it, you know?
No, I get what you're saying. Honestly, Kenzie, I feel like we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even kidding. So can I ask you a question? When you left home and you moved to California, because I always say that I ran away to college.
Absolutely.
You feel like you did this?
So I wasn't even going to college. I was 17. I graduated early.
Yeah.
I had a lot. This is stuff I haven't like shared online yet, and I probably will like eventually.
Okay.
There was a lot of things that had happened to me in the recent years, and I just needed to get out of where I was. So the move, I always told people that it was, and I like, this is really the first time I'm even saying this. I always said it was a career move, and it was like, by no means was I like rolling in money. I was, I wasn't making good money for years after that.
Yeah.
But it was way more what was happening in my personal life than it was my YouTube channel. But also I had a way out and I was like, this is what I want to do anyways. And so it gave me that excuse where people didn't have to ask. You know what I mean? Like even my closest friends that I'm still friends with today, like it still is, that was the move. But I just needed, I just needed to get out. Like there was really no other way. And so it was mainly that, but it was running. And then it was it was kind of a hard wake up call too when I eventually moved back to Texas, because when I was in LA, one, it was very nice to have some space from my family, and I love them so much, but my family, you know, was very emotionally reactive, and that was like the number one thing I wanted to learn how to fix. Yeah. And I felt like I had gotten really good, and I still struggle with it, my family, to this day. So when I came back to Texas, it was weird because I was like, wait a second, I've worked so hard to heal all of this, and I feel like it's all coming back up. But what I learned from that is that, one, obviously going into certain environments will bring out certain things. Yeah. That's an obvious. But also I think that at different ages, you heal in different ways. Yes. Because maybe a 17-year-old you wasn't even able to grasp that. And then as you get older, maybe you're older and you can understand it more, but also you see it from a different perspective as you get older. Yes. So I was 22, 23, and I was angry for so many other reasons. Yes. So it made me realize, like, when they say healing is not linear, it's like, no, like, it's really not linear. Yes. Like, they really mean that. Yes. So it was really helpful, though, like, coming back and then getting back in therapy. Yeah. Because it made everything better. And then also, same thing with striving. I've always been like striving. That's like all I've done my entire life. Even before all this stuff.
I feel like that's oldest daughter.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Oldest daughter. Yes.
I was just striving so much. And I've always been, like, my friends have always meant a lot to me. I've always really loved my friendships. I would say in LA, I didn't have, like, the group of people. Not that you need, like, a friend group, but I had, like, a few one-offs of friends that I, like, love. But I didn't have, like, the friendships that I was maybe needing or I thought I was looking for at that time. But I wasn't looking for it because all I did was work. Yes. And that's just what I thought I had to do. Like, you hear this online. They're like, work. Like, it'll pay off later on and whatever. And what I found was that, like, I personally am fulfilled by, like, the relationships in my life, not in a codependent way, but in a way of, like, that is, to me, what it actually matters at the end of the day. And it is more important to me than my career. I'm sorry. Like, it makes me happier. And it's just like that is so much human connection, like relationships are just so much more important.
It's important.
I didn't have that. And not only did I not have that, I was isolating myself for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So when then I got back here and it was almost like I had like, quote, better like life balance.
Yeah. I
was like, wait, everything in my life, including my career, is going so much better because I'm not like strangling it. This actually was a very life-changing, I'm almost off my tangent. This is a very
you're
life-changing.
good. I like listening.
So this is like a life-changing, I would guess like analogy, metaphor.
Yeah.
Someone said, like, picture something like you have an open hand in everything in your life, whether it's a relationship, a career, an ideal, like a thought pattern, whatever it is. When you strangle something, you're not giving it room to breathe and grow, and you're holding on too tightly. And we typically do that out of fear of failure, out of fear of losing something, out of fear of not being enough, out of fear of maybe you think they're going to see you for who you really are because you have some sort of imposter syndrome. So when you're holding too tightly to something, you're suffocating it and you're killing it.
Yes.
So when you hold on too tightly to anything in your life, it could be your career, it could be your relationship, your friendships, whatever it is, you're strangling them and not allowing them to grow, and anything that isn't growing will eventually die.
Yes.
So that was a really big wake-up call to me over the span of, 5 or 6 years. It took me a while to learn that one. Yeah. But I think it's helped me immensely in regards to striving, especially as someone who has a lot of things that I want to do that I honestly will do because I'm very confident in doing that.
Yes.
But I would just never recommend isolating yourself, literally ever. Like, it was really terrifying. And it's different. Like, it's not an extrovert-introvert thing because you can do it in a way that's not, like, you're still feeding yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Girl, I've had a lot of isolation.
Yeah.
And I kind of like how you highlighted on, like, being in, like, your 20s and stuff because I think back to when I was 18, and I'm like, girl, you thought you knew the world, but you don't know nothing.
I think about that all the time. Like I knew I was so blindly confident. I moved to Los Angeles at 17 by myself. Wild. Not a fear or concern in the world. Like, it was like the naive part of me that made it easier. Yes. And now I'm like, I'm 25, I know nothing. You know?
That's how I feel.
The older you get, the less you know.
Yeah, that's how I feel. But you know what I'm looking forward to? I was talking to my partner's grandma, and I said, so, Diane, what was your favorite age? And she was like, 60. I was like, really? And she was like, I love the 60s. The 60s are it. I'm actually looking forward to getting older.
Me too.
Like, and like, I wake up, I don't want to say I wake up every day, like, not knowing what's going to happen, but I literally wake up feeling a lot more graceful. Like, even like just about my image, just about my body, just about how it's changing, just about like how I'm morphing. Like, I wake up not thinking I know everything. Even like on my podcast sometimes, I literally have to tell myself, don't be too preachy, girl, because you're still trying to figure some stuff out in life. Yeah. Like, I try not to like even like put myself, like I hold myself to a high standard, but I try not to put myself like on a pedestal because it's just like, I could feel so strongly about something right now at this age and then feel completely different next year. Yeah. Or in 6 months.
Absolutely. I had a really hard time letting go of what I thought I wanted because I felt like that was failure.
Yes.
Which failure is also, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
But I was so terrified because what I really was headstrong on at 17 and what I thought I wanted ended up not really being what I wanted, which ended up leading me to better. Like, it's all good.
Yeah.
But I had a really hard time allowing myself to change my mind, even at like 22, 23, going through a big breakup. I was leaving like a very religious organization, and that was such a mind fuck to me.
Yes,
because you are, even if you don't believe something someone is telling you and they're ingraining it in you, even if you do not agree with them, it is very difficult to kind of get out of that. And also, this is actually something I was going to talk about like soon. I had a lot of shame around no longer wanting to be a part of something, and then also just shame for being a part of something to start with. So it was a very weird thing, but it was hard for me to change my mind. You know?
That makes sense. That totally makes sense, especially with like, when you talk about like it being ingrained in your mind. Yeah. Like, even like when I think about all the steps that I've taken, like with manifesting life. And also, I just want to say, like, manifestation is not possible without faith. That's genuinely how I feel. Like, I'm a firm believer in God. And people go on these tangents, like, you can't believe in God and manifest. When you look up manifestation, right there in that entire, I can't even think, right there in
Dictionary?
in the dictionary, it literally talks about faith and God. Those two go hand in hand, you know. And I also think about how like dreams are individually planted in each one of us differently, and to attract that is the power of like manifestation when you think about it. But I also think about how I had to unlearn a lot of things that I was taught, and in the process of like me cutting off like, you know, family dynamics that weren't good for me, it was very hard for me to have a relationship with I'm about to just say it, with my mother, all while I was trying to mother myself. So I had to kind of like learn to choose myself in that process. And then when I think about like when we talk about how you moved at 17, and I think about how like I just like went to college in DC, didn't even tour the school. My mom gave me $20 and was like, this is all I have, like best of luck, you know what I mean? And I remember going there, and I just think it's kind of interesting and powerful how sometimes our mind is honestly like 2 steps ahead of like our actual heart. So I think about how like I went to college and I went to school away from home. I couldn't come home all the time for the holidays. It would be very rarely. And I think about how all of these things, all of these life events are leading us up to become something more than what we currently are. And it's up to us to decide on what we do with that. Like you talked about how some people have anxiety that paralyzes them, you know, and I think about that a lot too. There's a lot of people I grew up with that had, you know, unfortunate circumstances and also had better circumstances than I did that kind of decided to not do anything with it at all. And then I also think about how like, you know, moving to California, going to school, having all of these weird ass situations happen, but how it was all subconsciously happening to me, if that makes sense. It's just like there's a lot of moments in life where I think about, there's like a lot of moments where I act without even understanding why I'm acting, and then I look back on it and I'm like, wow, I'm so happy that I did that. Or wow, I'm so happy. And sometimes you just have to act without even making sense.
Yeah.
Like you really do. Not at like the extent of like hurting someone or doing something messed up, but when it comes to your own life, like if you feel the need to leave a toxic environment, you just got to do it.
It's almost like when they tell you that you have to like visualize who you want to be and where you're at and act as though you're already that person.
Yes. Like you were talking about how like when you were young, like I remember being a kid and I used to literally think to myself, I'm going to be great. Like literally, I was getting bullied at school. I was getting teased. The boys didn't like me. I was sitting there thinking, you know what? You losers will regret this one day. Yes. Like I remember, like I had TikTok. I had made a post about a childhood best friend. And during the time that my family was homeless, her parents kind of put 2 and 2 together. And my friend was like the most popular girl at school. She was top dog, this and that. So like for her family to take my family in, it became like a very weird power dynamic, power struggle. And I remember I remember everyone at school knew that like my family was poor. We were homeless. We were living with her family. So I had to literally move schools from being bullied from that. And I remember hearing people say, Janell's not going to do anything. Janell's not going to amount to anything. Janell's not going to be great. And I remember saying to myself, you know what? I'm actually smarter than all of y'all. I'm a pocket this L because I'm finna come back with a fire in me that y'all ain't never seen before. And that's literally how I always think about it. And like even like in isolate, I'm about to pocket this L. Listen, I've taken a lot of L's in life. Like I've taken so many L's in life, and now I can look back and laugh at it. And that goes back to failure. Like if I'm trying to achieve a goal, I have to be open to failing from time to time because I'm not gonna get it right the first time. But I literally think to myself all the time, like all the moments that I wanted to give up, all the moments that I felt like I wasn't enough, those moments where it didn't make any sense, those moments where, you know, even when I was listening to your recent podcast about the holidays are very hard for me too, you know, and it's not even because like one of the guests talked about how you expect it to look a certain type of way, and that is true. I feel that, but it's the fact that I never had that. I never had that community where we are celebrating it. The holidays have always been sad. It's always been like at the precinct of like my mom not being able to get us gifts. So she would just completely remove herself and isolate herself, if that makes sense. So a lot of my childhood, I had to learn how to not be in isolation. And like, that's like when you talked about like isolation isn't good. It really isn't. Like I had to learn how to not be in isolation because I had spent so many years. Like when you talked about being in California, you have like single friend, like here, a friend here and there. I remember being in California and not having any damn friends. I remember being in college and not having any friends. And not because like I was a weirdo or socially awkward. It was the fear of them getting close. It's just like, wow, if they know me deeply, what if they don't like me? If they know me deeply, what will they say? How will they judge me, you know? And I had to learn how to like take those isolating moments and turn them into something empowering, because sometimes isolation can be bad if you're running from something, but isolation can also be somewhat good, because I feel like a lot of beautiful things are born in isolation. Like just being alone.
Yes. Having time to just think.
Yes.
Especially if you're relating to anything that we're talking about.
Yes.
It's important to give yourself time to think. And that sounds really stupid because you're like, I'm always thinking, whatever. You know, if you're afraid of silence, that's a huge sign that you need more time to think. But I want to talk about more of what you were saying. I have so many questions. I feel like there's so many things that you have unlearned.
Yes.
And we will be recording. This has been this episode. I'm loving it. You're coming on like 5 more times, so that's okay.
Okay.
But as far as unlearning goes, let's go specifically in regards to your life. It doesn't have to be like relationships. Honestly, I feel like it probably translates to everything, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
How did you go from unlearning all of the things that you were like subconsciously taught growing up in maybe, I'm assuming, like more of a like lacking mindset, or a fearful mindset? How did you unlearn that as you got older? Because also like you're still young, you know, so it happened pretty quick.
So I'm gonna be 27 next month, but I'm still learning every single day, and I think having healthy friendships really taught me a lot about myself. And I can't even explain or express the importance of having strong female friendships, which you already know all about.
Yes.
I can't stand a girl that says I get along better with guys than I do girls.
Shut the fuck up.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am a girl.
Yes.
But I would say my biggest learning lessons about relationship has been with my partner, Luke. Like, genuinely, when I tell you, I don't even know why or how he's still even with me, because I have been a literal hot mess. Like it's been a lot, because I didn't grow up with my mom was not touchy-feely, you know. Dang, I'm getting deep, Kenzie. Oh my gosh, hold on. So my dad, you know, at an early age, he decided he didn't want to be in my life. Like, he just was like, I'm out, peace out, you're on your own. And then when he came back around when I was 13, I was like trying to pitch myself to him. Like, look, I can dance, I can sing, I can act. High School Musical, I got it. You know, it was like that type of vibe. He didn't have any interest. And then I think about my stepdad, who I spent most of my adolescence with from like the age of 1 all the way until I was 12, who would literally beat me for anything. Like, there would be times where I remember there was one time I was sick and I had the flu and he had to pick me up from daycare. And he was so pissed. He literally came in there and beat me every single hour. Every single hour. So it was just a lot of learning that love does not have to come at the expense of violence. And I had to learn how to not be violent. You know what I mean? Like, to me, love was always violence. And just being with someone who is just really patient with me has like, it's been like the best thing. I'm not saying our relationship perfect, because it's not. Like, Luke got on my nerves last night. I'm pretty sure I got on his nerves last night too. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. But someone that will sit with you in that mess, someone that will just be kind and patient with you. And also, I didn't know how to communicate how I was feeling. I would just shut down or isolate. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of therapy. It also took a lot of reading. And I had to learn, because like when you grow up in a narcissistic household, you don't really know how to morph an identity around yourself. And you also constantly have to be 10 steps ahead of that narcissist, because people always think of a narcissist as being self-absorbed. No, a narcissist can be the quietest person in the room. Narcissists are about control. They're about controlling you, and they're about controlling how you make other people perceive them. So my entire perception of myself was at the expense of how someone else saw me. So when I would go to school, you know, I would always think, let me perform very well so CPS isn't called. Let me try to get good grades so they don't know that there's friction going on at home. So it would be a lot of that. I had to learn how to be a hot mess. That's what it came down to. I had to learn how to be carefree. I had to learn how to be like loving, like to myself. And like I used to be so envious of, like I said, Nepo babies, but I also used to be very envious of people that had confidence. And I had to learn how to, there's just so much. Like I'm still learning. And I think about the type of mom that I want to be too. But it's just like I really had to unpack a lot of those things. But it also came down to the fact that I've been spending all of 2021 and 2022 learning to mother myself. All the things I didn't get to do as a kid, it's just like, I'm going to do that now. Oh, we going to Disney World? Bet. I'm finna get that fast pass. You know what I mean? So it would just be like a lot of that. It would be a lot of that. And I'm still learning. Like, it's a journey. Like, even, like I had got a dog, right? And my dog woke me up and was like, dang, Janell, you got some rage in you. Like, she's just a baby. The diarrhea is going to happen a couple times a night. So it was just a lot of, I hope that made sense.
No, it does.
It's
and
just,
I like what you say, but like I'm still learning.
Yes.
Because it's important, one, to give yourself the grace, and two, to understand, again, it's not linear. So like I'm sure when you are a mother, my dad has one of my parents I
know, I'm like saying mom and dad, which parent? I need to like
I know. One of my parents had a very unique situation with another parent, and this parent always said that when they had me, it was a whole new wave of healing and of learning, because it's a lot of emotions, and then two, it's a different way, because then you're seeing it from, oh, I am now the parent. How could you know what I'm saying? So I think like it's just a lot of things. That's why when people say like, oh, this really was so healing for me, I think that it'll probably happen for you too, you know?
Yeah, I'm still doing it. Even like when I'm on social media, you know, like whenever I post, or like even like on my podcast and stuff, whenever I post, it's just like I'm actually talking to myself right now. Like this isn't like even like to preach. I need this right now. Like I am actually motivating myself. I do a lot of journaling, and then when I was in college, I used to do a lot of like just small video recordings on my laptop where I would just record myself crying. I know, disgusting.
No, people do that in place of therapy a lot.
People do that in place of therapy, and then even like with the whole manifestation tip, I write myself a long letter at the end of every single year, and I tuck it away, and then I read it again the next year. And if nothing's changed, then we need to figure some stuff out, because that's my way of holding myself accountable. So also a lot of self-reflection, and then I kind of have to like document and record how I'm feeling, just to remind myself, when you're someone that's been gaslit a lot during your life, your entire life, and you've always been told that how you're feeling isn't true and that it's actually wrong, I think it's very important to document those moments when you're sad, to document those moments when you're happy, because that is your truth, that is your track record, and people don't prioritize journaling enough, and they need to.
Yeah. I do morning pages every day.
Yeah.
Well, I try to. I'm like, every day. Let's rephrase that. But I do it a lot, and that has been really helpful, because I've noticed, for me, I've been able to connect the dots on my emotions. I had a really hard time. I couldn't really tell you why I was feeling certain ways more often than not.
Yeah.
I didn't know where the emotion was coming from. And when I started journaling and just like making myself write, it would come out of the back of my head. And it was something that I hadn't even thought about in years, but it's like, that's where that is coming from. And now I know like how I can heal it.
Yes.
I want to talk about self-compassion with you. This is, I would say like my, I don't even want to say worst trait, because I just like I have it better than I did. Okay. But self-compassion is very difficult for me.
Same.
I view self-compassion and grace as a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I do think I can give myself a little bit more grace, but I'm very hard on myself, and I expect a lot. So like, what do you think? Is there an answer? Do you think there's just a journey? Like, what do you think it is?
Ooh, girl. I'm still working on that one.
Yeah, I need to start.
It's hard. I struggle with it because I struggle with it. I think I really struggle with it a lot more. Like, for me at least, I struggle with it as a Black woman. You know, like there's just like this standard that I can't even like explain. And I really do struggle with it a lot. I'm still learning how to, like, even, like, just receiving praise from someone makes me completely uncomfortable. Like, I don't want it. I don't want to, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, sometimes I'll go places and, like, my partner's mom will brag about me to someone in front of me, and it just makes me curl. And
why do you think that is?
I honestly think that goes back to growing up with a narcissist, truthfully. You know, it's like anything that you do that isn't about them is almost sinful. Like when you talk about how you were almost in a cult, I felt like I was like in a dynamic like that. And I try to be compassionate with myself. Like resting is so hard for me to do. Like I feel bad. And then you know what my toxic trait is? I'll say to myself whenever I'm rest, girl, do you want to cry in a Toyota or do you want to cry in this Benz?
It's funny, but it's not really
good. Yes. And it's bad, but it's just like I'm trying to work on being compassionate with myself, and I'm trying to work on being kind to myself. Like, you know, something that I've really started doing too is like whenever I look in the mirror at myself, I really look at myself now. Like I try to look at myself without picking myself apart. There's like a lot of insecurity, and I think so many people experience, men too, when we don't openly talk about it. And it's just like compassion to me is easier to give to other people than it is to my own self. And I think that's like why I oftentimes choose to surround myself around people who do have unique stories. I can sob in a movie than I can for my own self. And I'm still practicing it. Like this is random. There's this one song by Adele, and it's called Hold On her album 30. And I literally was listening to it and just like completely broke down. And I was just like, I have not been compassionate to myself. And then in the lyrics, she literally the entire song is about being compassionate to yourself, you know. And I also I've been trying to learn like my triggers, which is really hard, but I'm still navigating compassion. Like I really am. I think the best advice I can give to anyone that's trying to figure it out is to just remember that you are human, and we are going to have a lot of weird shit happen throughout this process. Like things are not going to make sense. And I try not to think worst case scenario, but I do sometimes have to, like, especially when it comes to achieving those goals, especially when it comes to removing toxic family dynamics. Like, you cannot live this life or the next couple of months without a bad thing happening. Yeah. Something is going to happen. So anticipate it and know how to be open to it, and also practicing policing your thoughts. I think the best thing you can do for compassion is being knowledgeable. You have to study yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to. So stop listening to that really bad music that's telling you, I want to go hurt myself or cause self-harm. Listen to the I Love You So Much podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah. Surround yourself with good, loving people. But I don't know. What about you?
I'm still working on this. And I will say, I'm thinking about when I would talk about this more on the podcast a year ago, and I do feel a lot better.
Yeah.
For me, I think the two main things in my life is looking at myself and treating myself like a friend.
Yeah.
And I'm so easy on my friends. I think my friends, I think the world of them. I think any of them could do anything. Like, I just truly believe in them and love them all like so deeply. So I want to give myself that same energy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing for me, just as someone who is, you know, an Enneagram 3 and like overachiever and all these things, like I am not what I do. You know, like trying to separate my career, which I've been able to do a lot. Mm-hmm. I've become a lot better at that since, I don't know if it was moving back to Dallas or if it was the pandemic or whatever it was, right? Yeah. I think it was probably a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
And looking at my life as more of like a full circle instead of just my career. Yeah. Because that'll make you go crazy, just as it would if you were just looking at your friendships, you know, like seeing a lot of different almost like categories making up a whole. So I think like it's almost like a pie chart. that's been helpful. I still really struggle with it. I really do expect so much out of myself.
Yeah.
But I have been able to separate myself more, and a lot of that has come from having hobbies. I've never had hobbies before.
Yeah.
So having hobbies has been huge. That has helped. Honestly, that is what has helped me get away from my whole life and having friends, my whole life being my career. But yeah, I think that, and then also whenever I'm like hard on myself about something, sometimes I'll call a friend. More often than not, I'll think like my best friend Lauren or Dom, if they were coming to me about something, I would be like, guys, it's going to be okay. I'm this is ridiculous. And just because, like, if I make a mistake, then because I think coming from, like, a very emotionally explosive household, sometimes I'm like, I made a mistake. Therefore, I'm the worst person in the entire world. I'll spiral out of it. And also, something I'm unpacking now is that I lost 2 very close family members to me who were under the age of 25 within 18 months. And now I'm constantly, and that was only 2018, I'm constantly trying to get myself out of the mindset of bad things happen to me or like worst case scenario in that way, like actual extreme worst case scenario. Like my dogs are having health problems and it has highlighted it so much to me. I mean, not health, they're fine. Coco has IVDD, which is like a normal thing with dogs. She might have to get surgery or whatever. I check her pulse like every other hour. Like I'm noticing now how like grief and like death has really affected me. Yeah. But overall, I'm like, how did I go into self-compassion? I don't know. But, like, those are the things that I'm working on unpacking. And then a lot of it is just treating myself like I'm a friend.
No, I like that. This probably sounds so crazy, but I started doing this recently. And I haven't really, only person I honestly haven't told anyone this. So what I started doing was, I'm still figuring it out. Probably the last 3 months, I had like an extreme panic attack where I thought I was having a heart attack. I went to the doctor. It was bad. It was this song by Paramore called "You Are the Only Exception." Yeah. Okay, so that song,
I grew up listening to that song. That was like my song.
That song came on in the car because I was like doing like playbacks with Bay, and I was like, this is a song I used to listen to all the time when I was a kid. Literally hysterically started crying, went to go get pho, thought I was fine, and then in the middle of the night I woke up and I literally started having a full panic attack. And what happened in that moment was it took me back to being a child. So I like that you said you treat yourself like a friend because that's important. What I started doing is I separate my adult self from my inner child. And like that's like why I had like one episode where I talk about healing your inner child. It was based from that traumatic moment from Paramore. Yeah, so I started separating, and I think this will help me get to that self-compassion pact that I'm trying to have with myself, is separating my inner child from my adult self, because my adult self is able to mother that little girl that often didn't get to be a child. So reliving those kind of childlike things I wanted to do, like buy myself some Uggs. Girl, come on. Mm-hmm. All the rich girls had Uggs. Now I got me a little pair. I mean, they not like the brown ones, but they'll do. The gray ones will do right now. But I've had to like separate my inner child to learn to have compassion for her. Because now that I'm an adult, I have time, I have energy, I have money, I can drive myself, I can do all of these things now that I didn't get to do as a kid. So I try to separate those two. I know that sounds so crazy.
No, I actually do this as well. My therapist has taught me
right?
This. Yes.
It helps. Like when you check in, it's just like, okay, how are you feeling right now? That moment was a lot. What's going on? And also, it's also helped me like communicate better with people. Like, if something's bothering like my little sister, or if something's bothering one of my close friends, I'm able to say, actually, your reaction to me right now isn't really what I think it is. There's something that probably happened where you feel some type of neglect. Like even with my partner, like there's moments where like he has like these how can it's just different. Like it's not anything bad. It's just like he had these moments where it's just like I'll say something, he'll be like, well, why'd you say that? And then I have to think like, okay, think from a childlike perspective. What I said probably triggered something in him. And I feel like if we spend a lot more time healing our inner child, it'll be chill. It'll be good. Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of narcissists, like their biggest fear is failure. Like they don't want to fail, and they always feel like, you know what, I need to be bigger than everyone. They all oftentimes think of themselves as like this grand being and this grand thing. And I always think about, how about we go to that moment in our childhood that made us feel like we weren't enough? Yeah. And I feel like if more people do that, if more people did that, we would have like a better, I don't know, like a better understanding of one another.
I recently like started going to therapy with my mom. We finished since. It was actually really helpful. But I would sit on the couch with her, and this is my therapist that I've been going to for a couple years, and I just remember, you know, when like someone knows you so deeply and then and you know they can tell, and I remember I would sit on that couch, and the way I would act, the way I would talk, to the point where the way I was physically sitting was 12-year-old Kenzie. It was exactly when like the real trauma started happening.
Yeah.
And it was like the second I couldn't look at her, I literally wouldn't make eye contact with her. And that's not how we normally are. Like, it was just, my body physically went back to when I was like literally 12 years old. And that experience made me start to, it's like you're looking at yourself from like a bird's eye view, and you're able to separate the two as if like that's not who you are. That's just like something that's happened to you that you can deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Girl, yes.
But it was like physically, I was sitting like I was acting like a 12-year-old. Like, I was so immature in those sessions, but that's because that's where I was at still. Our relationship had been, I'd closed off. I'd shut down. And while we'd still had a relationship throughout those years, it was never what it could have been, because I was still so stuck as a 12-year-old Kenzie of things that were never healed. And maybe they were addressed, but they weren't fully healed on my end, on her end, whatever it was. And it was crazy, but that has been very helpful to me, and that I noticed it because I literally was sitting like I was 12, and I the way I was talking, like, it was very weird.
Ooh.
It was very interesting.
You just gave me like some chills for a second.
Oh my gosh, this episode has, I'm not kidding, been like one of my favorite episodes ever.
Are you for real? Are you just saying that?
I swear, I don't tell everyone that. I swear it really has been. We're going over time, so you're definitely gonna have to come back.
I will. I'll be back for sure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where can they find your podcast? Because so many of the things that we touched on in this episode, she has full episodes on, like 4 or 5 of them, I think.
When are you gonna come on my podcast?
Like whenever.
Okay, I want to plan that. Okay, so you can Spotify, Apple. Like the little podcast on the iPhone?
Apple Podcasts.
Apple, yes, Apple Podcast.
Yeah.
Honestly, pretty much anywhere. It's pretty much anywhere. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Pandora.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts?
Yeah, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
How can they follow the Instagram?
Oh, we got to do it. Okay, so you can follow me on Instagram, Janell _Roberts, and then you can follow the To All the People podcast at To All the People podcast on Instagram, and then you can follow me on TikTok. It's just Janell Roberts, Janell. Don't be putting an E at the end of it.
Oh yeah, be careful, guys. I'll have it linked in the show notes.
Just kidding.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know by giving it a nice thumbs up and subscribe for more.